The WWF, what the world is watching. Turn it on and rip the knob off.
Hey guys, and welcome back to the Wrestling Memory Grenade, episode 193. I am your host, Ray Russell, and this week we continue to tackle April 1989 in the World Wrestling Federation. Going to look at 2 more weeks of TV, already closing out the month of April. By the time we finish this episode, WrestleMania 5 will have been almost a month behind us. Hard to believe after all the work and time we put into putting that out there here on the podcast and the videocast world. Want to thank all the great guests that were part of that, and we've got more to come here, including, well, I'll save it for the end of the show. We got a special guest coming up next episode, maybe the next 2 episodes here on The Grenade, but for right now, guys, we continue on the story, The Journey, as we go back in time to the April 22nd, 1989 edition of the WWF's Superstars of Wrestling. All right, away we go with Superstars. April 22nd here. Tape back April 4th, Glens Falls, New York. Hacksaw Country Tough Guy. We're there at the Civic Center. It's Vince McMahon and Jesse Tie-Dye Ventura on the call this week. Love the shirt, Jess. And we hear from Jeff Barrett. Not Double J. Had to do a double take on the guy's name, Jeff Barrett, the events coordinator of Civic Center. We're welcoming everybody to Glens Falls. As we go to the ring, what a way to kick things off with the homegrown talent himself, Hacksaw Jim Duggan, from Glens Falls, New York, taking on George South. In the ring with the big old American flag is Hacksaw heading to the ring. We get an insert promo here from King Haku, who says Jim Duggan should be barred from using his 2x4. And while Haku uses his power to win, Duggan has to cheat using that trusty board. But Haku promising when they meet in the ring, Duggan and his 2x4 will be bowing at the feet of King Haku. We'll have to wait and see about that, as the Body informs us he has a big scoop coming into this matchup, something long overdue, says Jesse. We learn right here that Danny Davis will be returning to officiating here in the World Wrestling Federation. That's right, Dangerous Danny Davis will once again be a WWF official, a referee. Vince McMahon making sure to note this was done only after the agreement that Danny Davis would have to surrender his wrestling license. So a wrestler no more, Danny Davis, who will now be returning to officiating on a probationary basis. Honestly, with the way his career's been going the last several months, probably perfect out for one Danny Davis as a wrestler pivoting back to officiating. Meanwhile, we do have a match in the ring, Duggan versus George South. It's all Hacksaw here. Not much to it. The 3-point stance and clothesline will get the Duke. 1 minute and 49 seconds. Tough Guy. Hacksaw getting a win in front of that hometown crowd as we go off to Update and Mean Gene Okerlund. Got to get a replay from last week's Brother Love show, where we learned that Sherri Martel, a.k.a. Sensational Sherri, joining on as the new manager of the Macho Man, Randy Savage. So new business here in 1989, Sherri joining the ranks of the Macho Man, but it's going to be a fun 2 years ahead with that regime. As we go back to the ring, Big John Studd heading out to take on Mitch Casey, as we hear from Bobby Heenan and Andre the Giant, an insert promo. Andre telling Studd that Andre is the only giant here in the WWF. And of course, that means these two will come to step in the ring very soon here on the house shows, unfortunately. Meanwhile, in the ring, Mitch Casey comically trying to Irish whip Studd across into the far corner, but John doesn't budge. Instead, Big John whipping Casey into the corner, who does an upside-down flare flip straight off the top turnbuckle and all the way out to the floor. Nice bump there from Casey. Back inside, John Studd busting out a fucking arm drag. Go Big John. Followed by that double underhook suplex, gut wrench toss. Doesn't take the bump. But the bear hug going to get the quick submission win. Quick and painless. John Studd going over 1 minute and 20 seconds. Now, since his return, we've really been crapping on Big John for a lot of things. His lack of ability to cut a promo, to show any sort of energy out there, and certainly his wrestling ability. He keeps doing the same couple moves we've seen him do since the Royal Rumble, but also we've seen him bust out an Oklahoma roll a few weeks back, if I remember correctly, and now an arm drag randomly here from Big John Studd. So at least he's trying. It's not working, but at least he's trying. Speaking of trying, Hulk Hogan going to attempt to draw in the fans, not here to the arenas, but rather, well, he's got an upcoming major motion picture. Major motion picture? That's debatable. No Holds Barred will be released June 2nd. Check your local theaters, guys. Hulk Hogan going to be taking on Zeus. And we go back to ringside. The Doctor of Style Slick making his way to the ring all alone. Vince McMahon pondering if we're going to see the Doctor of Style wrestle himself. That would be cool. But instead, the Slickster introducing us to his latest protege. It is the one and only Rick Martel. You heard me right. Rick Martel now in the camp of the Doctor of Style, it would seem, taking on Terry Daniels here as Martel arrives to ringside to the tune of Jive Soul Bro. Doesn't really match, but I'm on board. So Rick Martel now managed by Slick, as Jesse Ventura says, he knew there was soul in that French-Canadian body of Rick Martel, who gives his new manager a high five before the matchup. We get an insert promo here as well from Tito Santana, still whining about Martel leaving him to fend for himself at WrestleMania 5. Tito's not sure what Rick's plans are, what he's up to, but promises to bring Rick Martel and his plans to an end. Arriba! Meanwhile, in the ring, Martel cartwheeling around a Daniels backdrop attempt. And of course, Rick going to play to the crowd. They're having a little fun before landing a beautiful leapfrog drop-down dropkick sequence, made famous later on by AJ Styles. Dropkick going to send Terry Daniels to the floor. Now back inside, stiff clothesline from Martel. Nice gut-wrench suplex, setting up the Boston Crab. Going to get the submission win here, 1 minute and 38 seconds. And more high fives between Slick and the insanely jacked Rick Martel here in 1989. I guess you could call him a model wrestler. As Stridex Wipeout presents the Mighty Hercules and his human torture Racco Doom, the Mighty One of the many talents here in the WWF. Speaking of talents, just now realizing he had some, we're going to go off to vignette number 3 in the line of Lanny Poffo poems, a.k.a. The Genius.
What's it like to be a genius when everyone's a dope? I have a sense of humor, otherwise I couldn't cope. I'm good at Roman numerals. No, that's not true. I'm great. I used them in my tax returns of 1988. They brought me in for questioning, and wow, were they impressed. Just think what they'd have thought if I had really done my best. I laugh at crossword puzzles in the USA Today. The New York Times is difficult. For me, it's child's play. I tried out once for Jeopardy, but got disqualified. Merv Griffin told me, Lanny, you are overqualified. I remind the competition and every wrestling fan, behold, the genius Lanny Poffo, the world's smartest man.
This dude uses fucking Roman numerals to do his taxes. I love it. I don't know if the IRS likes it very much, but you gotta love Leaping Lanny Poffo pivoting to this junior character. Overqualified for Jeopardy? I buy it. Behold the genius Lanny Poffo, the world's smartest man. Keep him coming, Laniel. As we go back to the ring feature match this week, going to see rugged Ronnie Garvin battle Greg the Hammer Valentine. Jimmy Hart by his side. And the bell sounds, the action gets going. Stiff shoving match. I said stiff shoving. Everything these two guys do in the ring is stiff. And it's going to lead to a pair of Garvin right-hand jabs going to rock the Hammer. Then we go straight into a nasty chop fest between the two. And if you guys have ever seen Rumble 90, kind of like that. Garvin going to put a stop to the chops, though, with a jumping headbutt, dropping Valentine for just a moment. Before more nasty chopping ensues, Greg finally going to retaliate, going to the leg of rugged Ronnie with a shin breaker, dropping Garvin down to the mat. Hammer looking for the figure 4, but taking the time out to adjust that shin guard, allowing Garvin time to recover. And as the Hammer begins to lean in to apply said figure 4, Garvin gonna counter, turning it into an inside cradle, scoring a quick win. 1, 2, 3 here. Match only goes 2 minutes and 14 seconds. Caught Valentine off guard. And a great pop here for Ronnie, who surprises Valentine with a quick win. Now, I know this match only went a little over 2 minutes, but this was the best shit Valentine has done since maybe WrestleMania 4 versus the Macho Man. And of course, Garvin's best shit since arriving. He hasn't really been able to do a whole lot, so very hard hitting, very stiff. I know it was only 2 minutes, but it was good for what it was. These two were perfect for each other, especially in this era where neither guy was really willing to move with the times. I think Valentine fit in better than Garvin ever did here in the WWF, but that was a quick pin finish on TV for a competitive matchup. So something tells me this isn't over. We don't do a lot of pinfalls in these feature matches unless, there it is, Tony Schiavone making his Superstars debut. Standing ringside is Tony interviewing an upset Hammer and Jimmy Hart after the bout. The Hammer claiming that Garvin supposedly paid off the referee. There's no way that rugged Ronnie Garvin could ever beat the Hammer. Citing a fast count here, maybe looking for a rematch. The irate Hammer issuing the ultimate challenge. No, not that ultimate challenge, but rather a rematch. Right here next week. And Valentine says, if I can't beat you, Garvin, I will put my career on the line. The Hammer vowing to quit wrestling forever if he can't beat rugged Ronnie Garvin right here next week on TV. Wow, that escalated quickly. Vince McMahon calling it one of the most ridiculous comments he's ever heard a wrestler make. Boy, I'll say, kind of a quick jump to, well, you pinned me, so how dare rugged Ronnie Garvin beat me? I want a rematch, and let's make it for our careers. We'll have to wait and see if Garvin responds here before the end of the program. We do get Superfly Jimmy Snuka, vignette number 2 here, which is just a logo with his name on the screen. Putting a lot of money and time into this return of the Superfly as Vince and crew. As we go back to the ring for tag team action, going to feature the Twin Towers, the Big Boss Man and Akeem, accompanied by Slick. We saw Rick Martel out here with Slickster earlier. Now he's got his Twin Towers out here, taking on David Lanning and Tony Roy. As we hear from the tag team champions Demolition, who promised to demolish 900 pounds of Twin Towers. Easier said than done, X. We'll have to wait and see. We get a brief appearance by Lanning in the ring before Roy tags in and gets sandwiched by the Towers, followed by the Boss Man leg straddle across that middle rope. Then an awesome driving Boss Man spiking Tony Roy into the mat for Air Africa. The big 747 splash. Going to put the opponents away. Twin Towers going over in just 1 minute and 20 seconds. And of course, what's a Boss Man match without a little post-match handcuffing? Poor David Lanning didn't do a lot of wrestling, but he does get cuffed and beaten with the nightstick for his troubles here to close out the segment. Towers look menacing and ready for their tag team title shot against Axe and Smash as we move on to this week's edition of the Brother Love Show. I love you, yes. And as guest this week, one Brutus the Barber Beefcake. Brother Barber, to be exact, immediately digging into the so-called Macho Man, he says. He says Randy Savage has selected the most sleazy, slimy, overdressed sweat hog as his new manager, ripping into Sherri here. Wow, them's fighting words. What brought this on, Brudi? Sensational Sherri? Slimy? Sleazy? Well, maybe sleazy, but in a good way. Brudi can't think of anything sensational about the sensational Sherri. In fact, when he thinks about Sherri, he thinks she's scary Sherri. That's it. Scary Sherri. I love it, pal. Beefer continuing to shout the word scary Sherri, hoping it catches on with the fans in a chant. And while they don't really chant very much here, at least as well as he'd hope, they do pop for the scary Sherri nickname, which does stick with the casual fan. I can vouch for that from growing up during this time period. And of course, this brings out Sherri herself, unamused, as Beefcake continues to keep calling her scary to her face. Naturally, Sherri gonna slap the barber straight across his mouth. How dare you, Beefcake? Reminding Brudi that she is now the manager of the Macho Man, and she is a lady. We quickly learn, though, that this is all a distraction, a setup to allow the Macho Man to attack the barber from behind. Savage blasting Beefcake in the back of the head as both now the Macho Man and Sherri begin putting the boots to Beefer there on the Brother Love set. Savage dropping an elbow before holding the barber down, while Sherri, oh my goodness, cutting the hair of the barber with his own scissors, no less. Sherri cutting the hair. Total humiliation. Talk about insult to injury. Cutting the hair off of the barber Brutus Beefcake are Savage and Sherri. Now at this point, we begin to hear Hogan chants. Hogan, Hogan. But officials begin to arrive, ushering Savage and Sherri off the stage. The heels celebrating, mocking Brutus as they toss the hair into the air. We even catch a glimpse of Beefcake, who appears to have had his head busted open there during the attack. Jesse Ventura thinks the barber, he had it coming after 2 years of those illegal haircuts. Good point as always, Jess. Really excellent angle at the end of the day. Didn't really see it coming. The Macho Man working here with Brutus Beefcake that really puts over Brutus into a new stratosphere of competition, though. And it helps get Sherri and Savage over as a top heel unit now. She's working with Savage. She's very dangerous, as we can see here, with Hulk Hogan making the rounds promoting his upcoming movie, No Holds Barred, brother. This certainly gives Savage a credible opponent and a reason to be working Beefcake on some of the upcoming house shows, as we'll be discussing in the month of May. It also gives us an on-air reason to lump Beefcake into the world of Hulk Hogan. Dude. Lots more to come here between all of the talent involved here and then some. Stay tuned, guys, as we continue on back to the ring. The Hitman, Bret Hart, Execution Excellence, taking on Chris Duffy here. We get an insert promo from Mr. Perfect, who says the Hitman, he's good, but he's not perfect. Perfection personified is Kurt Hennig. Meanwhile, in the ring, the Hitman comes in swinging, attacking Duffy, but it's Chris surprisingly knocking Bret out to the floor. Now Duffy going to try to slingshot the Hitman back inside, but Bret letting go of the ropes, reversing, and instead slingshotting Duffy over the top rope out to the floor. You know, that's called bringing him in the hard way. It's even harder when you take the dive to the outside. Bret Hart, instead of doing it in the ring, going to drop the big patented elbow off the apron down to the ringside mats. Back inside, the Hitman setting Duffy up with the backdrop before delivering a pile driver. Very quick, fast, and over with, getting the pinfall 1 minute and 15 seconds here. The Hitman, Bret Hart, looking good in solo competition as we are now treated, I'll use that term loosely, to the trailer of No Holds Barred coming out. We're going to see a whole lot of this in the weeks to come, so deal with it, guys. No Holds Barred on its way to the movie theaters June 2, pal. Then back to the ring for one more match here this week on Superstars, featuring the Intercontinental Champion ravishing Rick Rude, Bobby Heenan by his side, taking on Paul Smith, as we get an insert promo here from the former champ, the Ultimate Warrior, comparing his next encounter with Rude to a nuclear war. I don't know if I want to be Rick Rude going into their rematches at the house shows. Now, Rick Rude going to open up the segment talking to all those fat, ugly New York nerds, asking them to keep the noise down as he removes his robe. Another quick match here this week, showing dominance is the new IC champion, landing a backbreaker before the Rude Awakening neckbreaker, putting Paul Smith away in just 53 seconds. Quick match there from the ravishing one. Now post-match, Rude having the Intercontinental title placed around his waist as he awaits the next woman for his Rude Awakening kiss. Help yourself, toots, says Bobby Heenan in a simply ravishing t-shirt. This lady getting a smooch from the new Intercontinental Champion. All right, guys. Well, Valentine issued the challenge earlier on. Standing by to close the show backstage, Tony Schiavone with both Ronnie Garvin and the Hammer, Greg Valentine, here simultaneously. Garvin says he heard the challenge from Valentine earlier. The Hammer has put his career on the line in a rematch next week. Well, Ronnie says, I don't bet on dogs. I don't bet on horses. Not even football teams. But the one thing Ronnie Garvin will bet on is good old RRG himself. Betting on himself is Ronnie Garvin. Valentine taking it one step further. Hey, I'm putting my career on the line, Garvin. Why don't you do that too? Without hesitation, Ronnie Garvin accepting the challenge. The loser must retire. Both men putting their careers on the line right here next week. And I said it earlier, I'll say it again. Boy, that escalated quickly. Ronnie Garvin hasn't even been here but 4 months or so, but here we are. Well, 2 fun storylines this week, obviously at different levels, but fun nonetheless. We see a career-ending match unfold between Ronnie Garvin and the Hammer for next week right here on television. May Sweeps, pal, coming up very soon, so we're going to start it a little early here at the end of April. And it appears the Macho Man is coming after the Barber. We'll see how the Hulkster handles that situation, brother. Business has certainly picked up in a hurry coming out of WrestleMania. Sometimes they take a little break here on the TV, but it's hot and heavy thus far. And honestly, my only complaint is the abruptness of such a major angle with the Garvin Valentine story. The lack of time they were given to build it up. The speed of the promo, as if you were betting $10. Hey, I'm going to throw $10 on the line here. Let's do it next week. Even Vince's commentary, sounding like it's just another match in many ways. Kind of a weird feeling, but these guys were meant for each other in that ring. Looking forward to more of Garvin and Valentine here in the second half of this week's Grenade. Before this episode ends, one of these men will be forced to retire. As we continue on now, we go off to the following day wrestling challenge for April the 23rd. All right, it is Challenge, April 23rd, tape back April 5th, Syracuse, New York, Onondaga War Memorial. Bobby Heenan, Gorilla Monsoon on commentary here. And we kick things off with the former Intercontinental Champion, the Ultimate Warrior, taking on George South. Now we get an insert promo from the new IC champ, Rick Rude, who says at WrestleMania 5, he proved he was the Ultimate IC Champion. I don't think the Warrior Man is going to like those comments very much. In fact, a raging, angry, former Intercontinental Champion Warrior hitting the ring and attacking South, not waiting for the bell. Extra aggressive is Warrior Man here, decked out in all red. Maybe he sees red. Warrior slamming South all around the ring, mocking Rick Rude with a little hip swivel in between. But it's the Gorilla Press drop and big splash, giving Warrior the win, 2 minutes and 44 seconds. And here it begins. The Warrior Man carrying George South over his shoulder, carrying him all the way back to the locker room after the match. Extra intense action here, and that's saying a lot when you're talking about the Warrior, and apparently taking the soul of his opponent with him as he leaves the ring. Boy, I would not want to be Rick Rude right now as we roll off to Special Report and Lord Alfred Hayes talking about the recent heel turn of Rick Martel. We're going to hear from both sides of the Strikeforce debacle right now. We're going to hear, of course, from Rick Martel and his former partner, Tito Santana.
Following this dramatic desertion of his post by Rick Martel, both he and his erstwhile partner, Tito Santana, made these comments.
The reason why I walked out on Tito Santana at WrestleMania 5 is very simple to me. Why should he benefit from my talent? Why should I carry you around, Tito Santana, over and over? No more a free ride, Tito Santana. From now on, I'm gonna benefit from my ability.
Martel, the reason it's simple to you, why you walked out on me on WrestleMania 5 was because you had it all planned. Now you're going to show everybody how you carried me on along. Well, let me tell you something, Martel. Very shortly, you will find out who was the real force in Strikeforce. Arriba!
Rick Martel asking the ever-important question, why should Tito Santana benefit from my talent? No more free ride, Santana. From now on, Rick Martel will benefit from his own ability. Awesome promo there from Martel. Meanwhile, Tito thinks that Rick had it planned all along. He was planning to walk out at WrestleMania. Sure, Tito, he planned on you hitting him with a flying forearm. Well, now Rick Martel going to find out who was the real force behind Strikeforce. Arriba! So Tito Santana, Rick Martel clearly on a collision course at a house show near you. Speaking of action, though, we're going to go back to the ring for the Brooklyn Brawler. Steve Lombardi, still managed by Bobby Heenan here after Mania. His opponent, Tony Durante, the future Pitbull number 2. Bobby Heenan rocking a new black jacket here. Gorilla thinks he's already spending Rude's IC title money. Well, that's his prerogative, Gorilla. He can do what he wants with his money. We will notice that Bobby has some new duds here coming out of WrestleMania, a few new jackets. As we get an insert promo here during the Brawler match from or the Red Rooster himself calling Brawler stupid. You're stupid, Brawler. And he promises to put an end to this feud. Not fast enough. I don't know which part is worse, the fact that he's calling people stupid or that he's crowing like a fucking rooster. I'll leave that up to the fans to decide. Is Gorilla Monsoon doing solo commentary here with Heenan ringside, pointing out my grandpa's favorite thing about the Brooklyn Brawler here. His pocket was hanging off the back of his pants. My grandfather, anytime he walked in the ring, any good Saturday or Sunday morn, Brawler doing the jobs there on WWF television, my grandpa would always get a snicker out of the fact that the Brawler's clothes were falling apart. Anywho, we do have the Brawler in the ring here, raking Durante's face across the top rope, tossing him out to the floor, but quickly back inside, more mauling from the Brawler before the sidewalk smash, that face buster off the middle rope, not as cool as it sounds. Steve Lombardi picking up yet another win, 2 minutes and 19 seconds. If you had told me in 1996, Pitbull number 2 coming after Shane Douglas, that this guy was jobbing to the Brooklyn Brawler in 1989, I would have called you a liar, but apparently not. There it is right there. Proof is in the pudding, or at least in the video footage. Somebody delete this footage. Brooklyn Brawler scoring a win over Tony Durante as we continue on tag team action. The Rockers taking on Gary Royal and Chris Duffy. We get an insert promo here from the fabulous Rougeau brothers, who say early to bed, early to rise, make the Rougeaus healthy, wealthy, and wise. Baby! So the Rougeaus just mocking the Rockers right now. As Bobby Heenan returning to commentary, he thinks the Rockers, in their new cool purple shirts, are actually trying to imitate the Brawler as they cut it all up. Lots of holes in the Rockers' clothing, as you might know. He thinks they're mocking the Brawler style. I guess I can see that argument, but Sean and Marty, unlike the Brawler, not covered in filth. And boy, do those ladies the fans love the Rockers. Is Gary Royal going to work the majority of the matchup? Taking bumps plenty here is the sometimes cruel connection member over there in the NWA. And much like Superstars, here on Challenge, we once again hear the news during this matchup that Danny Davis is being reinstated as a referee. And he has indeed turned over his wrestling license and will be officiating under probation. So expect to see Danny Davis back in the ring as a referee sooner rather than later. Meanwhile, the action goes on here. Royal winds up elbowing his own partner Duffy, taking him out as the Rockers land a double backdrop, and a beautifully timed sequence leads to Michaels delivering a high cross body on Duffy, putting him down. The Rockers going over in 3 minutes and 6 seconds because they are, in fact, tag team specialists. Woo! As we go on, we get a replay of the Superfly vignette number 2 and the action back in the ring, featuring the $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase, with bodyguard Virgil by his side. DiBiase's opponent this week, Cougar J, another NWA alumni. We get an insert promo from the Snake. Jake Roberts says, "You should have left the Snake alone, but you didn't, did you, Teddy? Now you're going to find out what it feels like to have the Snake wrapped around you." Could mean Jake, could mean Damien, could mean both. But one thing it does mean is Ted DiBiase in all sorts of trouble when Jake gets in the ring with the $1 Million Man. Gorilla asking here on commentary, what kind of a mother names her son Cougar? Cougar J. Bobby states she was probably looking at a car at the time. Cougar driving by, and thus the name Cougar J. Stuck here. DiBiase going to dominate the matchup, though. Stiff left arm clothesline. Nice power slam, as always, setting up the $1 Million Dream, getting the quick win, 2 minutes and 14 seconds. And the $1 Million Champion stuffing money in the mouth of Cougar here. As Gorilla questions, $1 Million Champion of what? Well, champion of $1 million, apparently, here, as we get a replay now of the Genius vignette, poem number 3. Then back to the ring, more action. Going to see Jim the Anvil Neidhart take on Paul Fine. Wonder if he's related to any of the Three Stooges. We get an insert promo during the Anvil matchup from Mr. Fuji and his man, the Barbarian. Fuji stating he created Barb just for you, boy-san, coming straight for the Anvil. As Gorilla points out the limited vocabulary of one Fuge the Stooge, and of course the Barbarian as well. In the ring, though, Neidhart, big clothesline dumping Fine over the top rope out to the floor. Back inside, quick win here, power slam, Anvil flattening. Paul Fine, match only goes 1 minute and 41 seconds. Barbarian versus Neidhart on the house shows. As we go off to a special interview with me and Gene Okerlund up on the platform, talking with Andre the Giant and Bobby the Brain Heenan. Now, Andre going to jerk at Gene's suit, blaming Big John Studd for his loss to Jake Roberts at WrestleMania 5. Studd was responsible. He's the reason Andre was disqualified, ignoring the fact that Andre attacked John Studd, who was the referee. Heenan reiterating that John Studd was a terrible official, but they will eat the loss. Studd learned he was in the ring with a real giant when Andre put his hands around the throat of Big John. Studd gonna find out who the true giant is in the upcoming weeks. Well, very quick, super short promo, painless, and I don't know if this is because it's Andre versus Studd or what the deal is, but Andre, to me, just doesn't seem to be into it as much as we saw him with Duggan, with Jake. I don't know. Maybe I'm reading too much into it, but Andre the Giant and Big John Studd, another matchup, going to be headlining the C shows. Can't wait to see what those draw. As we continue on here, we've got more matches this week, including the Bushwhackers. Luke and Butch taking on Max MacGyver and John Weiss, the future Johnny Hotbody up in the Northeast. We get an insert promo during the Whacker match from the Brainbusters. How do you prepare for a pair of uncontrollable fruitcakes? Asks Arn Anderson. Well, the Busters don't prepare. They react. And apparently they're going to react when they step in the ring with Luke and Butch. Now, thus far, we've seen the Whackers work at least a couple impressive moves per matchup. But I think right here, right around this time frame, this is where they learn, we don't have to do shit, mate. Because they really don't do shit here other than the battering ram and the double gutbuster, putting MacGyver down, getting the Bushwhackers another win here on TV, 3 minutes and 30 seconds before we're treated to yet another no-holds-barred promo. 2 a week right now, pal, per episode of television. Lots of no-holds-barred, and that's not counting all the talk on Primetime Wrestling. As we close out this week's challenge, we got one more match in the bag, the Honky Tonk Man, with Jimmy Hart in his corner, taking on Gene Ligon, as we get an insert promo here from Hillbilly Jim, who says he's not impressed with the fancy duds and hair of the Honky Tonk Man. Hillbilly gonna play a good old hillbilly tune over the Honky Tonk Man. Battle of the Singers? I'm not sure what's going on here, but we get super generic strikes for offense here from the Honky Tonk Man. As Gorilla says, Honky, he's recently fell on hard times here in the WWF. No shit. Sit-out clothesline going to set up Ligon, though, for the shake, rattle, and roll neckbreaker. Honky Tonk Man going over 2 minutes and 36 seconds. 5 years. Hillbilly Jim has been with this company going on 5 years. Unless you count the small little feuds with Roddy Piper and things on TV, he has never been lumped into an actual feud in his entire run here in the WWF. Couple the fact that he really hasn't been an active full-time wrestler in a couple years here. All of a sudden they come calling Hillbilly to work the Honky Tonk Man. I feel like there's just, the punishment continues on for Mr. Wayne Ferris here. You won't do the job, pal? All right. I got 2 words for ya. Ha ha! Hillbilly Jim. All right, guys, we wrap up this week. Next week, big feature match. Intercontinental Champion Ravishing Rick Rude taking on the Mighty Hercules. And right now, we're going to hear from both sides.
Big news, folks. Our feature next week here on Wrestling Challenge. Ravishing Rick Rude, the Intercontinental Champ, taking on Hercules.
You know, it'll take a good man to beat Hercules, but it won't take us long.
Will you stop? Let's hear from both of them.
My reign as Intercontinental Champion has begun. It all started at WrestleMania 5 with the victory over the Ultimate Warrior, and it will continue right here next week as I show the Mighty Hercules why I am the Ultimate Intercontinental Champion.
Rick Rude, you weaseled your way into the Intercontinental Championship, but next week, right here, there will be no escape. You will feel the wrath and the power of the Mighty Hercules.
Well, that's a hell of a matchup. Hercules coming after Ravishing Rick Rude, who not only has the IC belt, but also happens to be a member of the Heenan family. Look for the Mighty One to kill 2 birds with 1 stone if he has the chance right here next week on Wrestling Challenge. Later here on the Grenade as we go off to our next piece of business, April the 24th, more Primetime Wrestling.
and welcome once again to Primetime Wrestling. I'm Gorilla Monsoon, and my
your host,
associate,
Bobby the Brain Heenan, the man that's packing the gold now.
I understand that. Congratulations were in order. They were given. You've forgotten already, right?
No. Forgotten what? That I managed the Intercontinental Champion?
No, forgot that I was one of the first ones to congratulate you on winning the Intercontinental title. Of course, you were a little inebriated at the time.
I don't drink. I was having a good time. I was enthusiastic. I was high with happiness.
Oh, okay.
That's what happened.
The Don Perignon was excellent, by the way.
I hope you enjoyed yourself. They waxed me for over $2,000.
Well, that's what happens when you want to have a good time. You got to pay the price, so to speak.
Well, it's worth it. I don't care anymore. Look what I've got. Ravishing Rick Rude, Intercontinental Champion.
You said this was going to be your year, Brain.
That's right. A lot of things are going to happen to me this year, or for me this year.
Are you familiar with the term euthanasia?
Yes, I am.
You are?
Yes, I am.
Yeah, well, you might be in order for that this year, too.
She used to dance with a snake in Cleveland?
No, she never did, no. Our feature this week features one of the Heenan family, King Haku, and opposition is kind of heavy.
The big dumb hick from Mudlick, Hillbilly Jim.
Wouldn't he look good if he had the crown and the cape on?
Oh, yeah, him and Granny sitting out back going in that little house with the half moon on the door.
Might have to have the cape lengthened a little bit.
3rd year anniversary of Bobby and the Gorilla together here, April the 24th, Primetime Wrestling. You hear it here in the intro. Lots of discussion. We're still coming out of WrestleMania 5, all the big topics on their mind. But that's not all. There's a lot of other happenings going on in front of them here on the episode, and they continue to discuss that, including that of the Honky Tonk Man.
Big smile on the face of the Honky Tonk Man, but Brain, I understand from some very reliable sources that he's not too pleased with you and Ravishing.
Not too
because
pleased
you've
with
got
me.
what belonged to him.
He's not too pleased with me and Rude. That's tough. Everybody can stand in line. From the Jimmy Harts to the Tito Santanas to the Hulk Hogans to the Macho Man Savage. I have no friends anymore, and I don't care for any.
You never had any.
Well, good. Then I don't know how to react to these situations.
I can remember sitting here and you saying the word spewing right out of your mouth that the Honky Tonk Man was, in fact, the greatest Intercontinental Champion of all time.
That's right. Up until now.
Oh. Now
Face
Ravishing is the greatest.
Hey, Honky Tonk, there's no disgrace in being second best.
That's it, right?
That's it, period.
This is
my anniversary.
That's your cop-out, right?
I'm celebrating.
Stay with us. We're going to take a look at just a moment the return of Superfly, Jimmy Snuka.
Well, they had to figure out a way to factor Honky Tonk commentary into this matchup, but it's fun to hear Bobby Heenan say he's not just a heel, he's a Heenan family heel. In other words, Bobby has no friends outside of his own Heenan family, and it's very cool to hear him tell the Honky Tonk Man, like everyone else, to wait in line, get in line to take on Ravishing Rick Rude. Honky Tonk, you were the greatest Intercontinental Champion of all time, but not anymore. We go off to yet another soundbite now as we come out of the attack by the Macho Man and the Sensational Sherri on Brutus the Barber Beefcake.
That was despicable. You think it was funny, don't you? You thought it was hilarious,
For a couple years now, that creep has been cutting people's hair when they're unconscious. Now the tables are turned. I love it. Sensational Sherri, my hat goes off to you.
Scary is the word.
Scary?
She is scary. And dangerous.
They better be a little bit afraid of her.
Dangerous.
Very dangerous. I love it.
Well, maybe we'll see just how smart you are, Brain, because now the Macho Man, Randy Savage, doesn't have any gold. All he has is a new manager. He'll be looking for some gold. Maybe some of the gold that is now in the Heenan family.
You know, when someone's been... You're referring to the Ravishing Rick Rude.
Sure, the Intercontinental title. Any belt is better than none. Well, he's at a loss for words right now.
Somebody's been used to a diet of nothing but the best, like Savage has that gold, and you take it away from him, he's more hungry than ever. He wants to help that appetite along.
Stay with us. We'll be back.
Another thing.
Well, Bobby Heenan just full of input and ideas and ideals, I should say, here this week on the program. But we're not done yet. More commentary here from Gorilla and Bobby after this most recent poem from the genius.
Roses are red, violets are blue. Humanoids enjoy that. That was for you. Not bad, huh?
You want to get a cape and a gown? And
No, he's the genius.
he
Don't
is.
step on his toes. What an intellectual man.
Sounds like you're trying to get him in the Heenan family.
I didn't say that.
I didn't say you did. I said it sounds like.
If I was to say that, you'd call him and tell him that he was needed in Guam and get rid of him.
Why would I do that?
Because you're out to
Might
sabotage
not be a
me.
bad idea, though. You know, he might do well in Guam.
No, I mean, couldn't you imagine our minds working together?
Oh, yeah, complete disaster between the 2 years. 2 years together couldn't get locked up.
Oh, yes, we could.
Yeah, I'm sure you could, yeah. Who knows what's on the mind of the genius? Only the genius. I wasn't too sure about this guy when he was Leaping Lanny Poffo, but now he's the genius. There's no telling.
Really good stuff. I don't really find what I'd consider must-see or must-hear sound bites from primetime, at least as much as we used to. This week I got 5 sound bites for you, though, guys. So we listened to the intro. We talked a little bit about the Honky Tonk Man, the Intercontinental title, the Macho Man, and everything going on there. Of course, the Genius and some interesting banter we just heard. And now we're going to come out of the announcement of Greg the Hammer Valentine, Ronnie Garvin. We saw the matchup. Garvin scoring the win, the Hammer issuing the career-ending match challenge, Garvin accepting said challenge, and now we're going to hear Bobby and the Gorillas' take on this entire situation.
Interesting match coming up. Take a look at the Hammer and Ronnie Garvin. Indeed, they were ridiculous comments, but he meant every word of it.
Oh, see, that's what happens when people don't use their head. And I'm not knocking Greg the Hammer, but sometimes people react. He stated he will give up his wrestling career if Ronnie Garvin can beat him. Now, Ronnie Garvin's capable of beating anybody at any given time.
That's
the
right.
man's a proven commodity in this sport.
Well, I don't understand why one of the comments that Jesse the Body made at the end of the match that he considered that an upset. At the onset of the match, he said, 2 guys evenly matched, both the same size, both with tremendous experience, both with ring knowledge. And he says he considers it an upset. Give me a break. I don't understand that logic.
You know what's something that's worse than what's happening right now? Is you and I are agreeing on something.
Oh, we're in deep trouble then. In fact, folks, we're going to have for you right here on Primetime next week that particular matchup, the return match between these 2 individuals, and one of them's career will definitely be over. We'll be back in a moment.
Well, usually it's the Body who tells it like it is, but you could tell Gorilla Monsoon not feeling Jesse Ventura this week, really ripping into him as he points out everything positive that Jesse said going into the bout between Valentine and Garvin, basically being equals, but then referring to it as an upset after the matchup. Gorilla coming in hard there on Jess this week. I don't know what happened behind the scenes, but Monsoon none too pleased with the Body, you can tell, at least this week, as we got a couple exclusive matches also airing this week. Oddly, both of them taped all the way back in October of 1988, pulling out some old-timey matches here for this week's Prime Time, going back into the archives. Taped October 6th in Toledo. It's the Brainbusters, early Brainbusters here, scoring a victory over Sam Houston and Scott Casey. We also see a matchup on October 5th in Fort Wayne, Indiana. The Blue Blazer scoring a victory over Jose Estrada with a big moonsault. 7:37 was the time of that one. They gave these guys a little time to work, but Estrada no longer with the company by the time this airs. Now we've got another week of wrestling to discuss, but first, I invite everybody to stay tuned as we listen to some of the upcoming shows and goings-on here with this quick WrestleCopia timeout.
Relive the glory days of Memphis wrestling with the Retro Wrestling Review USWA podcast. Each week, we go back in time to review USWA Championship Wrestling from the 1990s, episode by episode. Join us for watch-alongs, behind-the-scenes stories, and exclusive interviews with people who were there and lived it. Whether you grew up watching it or you're discovering it for the first time, this podcast is your ringside seat to Memphis wrestling history. It's all a part of the WrestleCopia Podcast Network. Listen now at USWApodcast.com.
Hey guys, Ray Russell here. Lots of new stuff happening here at WrestleCopia, and I want to update you on everything going on with the brand right now. First and simple, if you haven't checked out our website at WrestleCopia.com, it's a great way to keep up with the latest episodes of all of your favorite Copia programming, from the Wrestling Memory Grenade to Regional Wrestling with the Territory Talk, the Wrestling Stoop with the legendary Bob Roop, Professor Dan Ginnity and the Pro Wrestling Academy, and all the other great podcasts from Gene Jackson, Bob Smith, Dave Dynasty, and the boys from the Other Ship. And of course, all of those programs also available at your favorite podcast streaming platforms. And if you want to stay up to date with everything going on in the Copia world, all the latest news, random thoughts, fun videos, pictures, and more, make sure to join the more than 33,000 followers over at Facebook.com/WrestlingGrenade. Don't be left out. Please also follow us at the former Twitter, now X, at Wrestling Grenade, and subscribe to YouTube.com/Wrestling Grenade. Would also greatly appreciate you leaving us a 5-star review at your favorite podcast apps, guys, because every positive review makes our podcasts more visible in the algorithms, if you will, which allows us to continue to grow. Now, for those who have been asking about merchandise, WrestleCopia merch, you can find plenty of designs for our t-shirts, hats, magnets, stickers, coffee mugs, and more over at the TeePublic store. That is tpublic.com/user/WrestleCopia. And last but definitely not least, it's what keeps the entire machine going. I'm talking about patreon.com/WrestleCopia. Now with 3 major tiers and tons of Patreon exclusive next level content for our supporters. Remember guys, no subscription, cancel any time, but I think you'll like the content that we're offering there for any budget you may have. And you can sign up right now, patreon.com/WrestleCopia. We appreciate your support in helping us pay the bills to keep the WrestleCopia Podcast Network running and enabling us to continue to bring you all the quality programming that we offer.
This is Wrestling Nostalgia, the podcast that dives into wrestling history. Hey, wrestling fans, I'm Dave Dynasty, and if you enjoy podcasts that are knowledgeable and history-driven, then Wrestling Nostalgia is for you. With great guests and fun interviews, there are over 200 episodes in our archives. We chat with several first-time guests and often cover topics not discussed on other podcasts. Look up Wrestling Nostalgia on your favorite podcast platform and visit all of our links at linktree/WrestlePod. That is linktr.ee/RASSLEPOD. And remember, wherever you go, whatever you do, be good, be safe, and keep on growing.
All right, guys, welcome back to the program. We've got 1 week down, 1 more to go. Already closing out the month of April. Unbelievable here this week on the Grenade. And we continue on the April 29th edition of Superstars. Tape back April 4th, Glens Falls, New York at the Civic Center. It is Jesse Ventura and Vince McMahon on the call. To the ring for the tag team champions, Demolition, battling Rick Mitchell and Jim Chappell, or Chappelle, as they pronounce it here. We get an insert promo from the Twin Towers and Slick during this matchup, who announce they are coming for the titles. Jesse Ventura believes the Towers have an excellent chance of taking the belts, but even the body has to admit that being the champions means you're the best team today. And that right now is Demolition. As the action gets going, Chappelle eats a beatdown early before Smash tossing him into this corner, allowing him to tag in Rick Mitchell, as it is a quick Demolition decapitation, putting Mitchell down in just 1 minute and 37 seconds. The tag team champions for more than a year now. Axe and Smash Demolition. Can Twin Towers take the belts? We won't have to wait long to find out. As we go off to another update with Mean Gene Okerlund, we go back to last week's edition of Brother Love, the Macho Man and Sherri attack, cutting the hair of the barber, as Beefcake going to respond here in a quick promo, showing off that brand new haircut. An angry barber vowing revenge, says if it's the last thing he does, Savage and Scary Sherri will pay. Well, the poems continue on. We go off right now. Lanny Poffo once again. It's Genius Vignette number 4.
People always ask me questions concerning my degree, because 3 chevrons in a row should spell out Ph.D. They assume I went to Oxford where the literary go. That may be true for Oscar Wilde. For me, it isn't so. Get your encyclopedia, select the book marked L, and look up Lincoln Abraham and read it well. I am of the same alumni as our 16th president, and when I wear my cap and gown, I proudly represent my beloved alma mater runneth over my poor cup. It's Lincoln. Now go and look it up. And when your homework is complete, then you will understand. I am the genius Lanny Poffo, the world's smartest man.
Well, you guys are pondering, what college is it that the genius graduated from? Well, the same college as Abraham Lincoln. That's the School of Hard Knocks. Self-educated was Lincoln. Self-taught was the genius. And he taught himself well. Even taught himself how to entertain himself. Google it. As we go back to the ring, Jim the Anvil Neidhart taking on Big Tony Suber, near 300-pounder himself, Tony Suber. We get an insert promo, though, from Foods, the Stooge, and the Barbarian. Says the Barbarian will destroy and make you suffer. He has been ordered to destroy the anvil. Ha 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 ha, boy son. Vince McMahon asking the question, why is Fuji always laughing? Well, he's probably just pulled a rib on someone, would be my guess, Vince, but the Barbarian coming for the anvil. Meanwhile, in the ring this week, Suber coming for Neidhart. As Tony going to back Jim back into the corner, but misses a cheap shot, and the anvil going to take control. Now, the big 300-pounder Suber, given a few shots, gets a little bit of offense here, but misses an impressive-looking dropkick. Had it connected. Gets up there pretty high. But Jim Neidhart sidesteps and plows Suber over with a pair of tackles before setting him up for the power slam, flattening Suber. Middle of the ring, the anvil gets the win. 1 minute and 43 seconds. As Stridex Wipeout presents the Honky Tonk Man this week. Shake, rattle, and roll neckbreaker. Honky Tonk Man looking for Hillbilly Jim, I suppose. Well, the Canadian strongman Dino Bravo right back in action again this week. His opponent, Brian Johnson. But Jimmy Hart carrying a big giant Quebec flag, that fleur-de-lis. Wait a minute. Did I say Jimmy Hart? Frenchie Martin now gone. As Jesse Ventura says, I heard rumors. And they appear to be true. Jimmy Hart, the brand new manager of Dino Bravo, it would appear here. Baby. 3 managers in 3 years here for Dino. This one will finally stick. We get an insert promo from fellow strongman, the Mighty Hercules, who notes having Jimmy Hart makes Dino more dangerous, but he is not intimidated. If Bravo wants to prove he is truly the world's strongest man, step in the ring and prove it to the mighty one. Hercules calling out Dino Bravo. As in the ring, Bravo landing a gut-wrench suplex, then an airplane spin, setting up the side suplex. Gonna get the win in 1 minute and 39 seconds. And holy shit, what a side suplex it was. Damn near rotating Johnson, dumping him down on his head. I don't think that was Dino's fault. I don't think Brian held on, and boy, that could have been disastrous. Dino Bravo gets the Duke here with new manager Jimmy Hart by his side. As did I mention, No Holds Barred in theaters June 2, pal. And it is back to ringside. Singles competition featuring the Ultimate Warrior taking on Gary Royal. We get an insert promo here from one ravishing Rick Rude, who stole the Warrior's IC title. Rude stating that, I stole your title and your heart at WrestleMania 5. Now the belt belongs to the sexiest man alive. Be careful, Rude. I think Lanny Poffo has the market cornered on poetry there, but Rick Rude mocking it, putting it in the face of the Warrior, which leads us to the announcement, the introduction here of the Warrior Man, a new, angrier, even more intense Warrior, if that's possible, rushing the ring, and that cannot bode well for Mr. Gary Royal. Warrior immediately running off the ropes, plowing Gary over with a flying shoulder tackle before the bell can even sound. That's the move he set up to finish the Honky Tonk Man off in record time, that flying tackle right out of the gate before the bell even rings. So the crowd eating up the energy shown here by the Ultimate Warrior, who lands a backdrop before chopping poor Gary Royal over the top rope all the way out to the floor. Warrior going to maul Royal on the outside before tossing him back into the ring, throwing his face into the camera. Showing up Gary Royal here, very angry and intense. The Ultimate Warrior with the big clothesline, setting up the Gorilla Press drop and a nasty, very impactful splash. Going to end this thing mercifully or unmercifully. The Ultimate Warrior getting the win, 2 minutes and 29 seconds. UW, more of a maniac now than ever after having the Intercontinental title stolen from him at WrestleMania. No doubt coming for revenge and the IC title back from ravishing Rick Rude. Wow, the intensity and the energy here. Good wrestler? Nah. Reckless? Indeed. But this was why me and all those other little warriors were attracted to the presence of the Ultimate Warrior. Indeed. As we go off now to Superfly Jimmy Snuka vignette number 3, featuring once again a logo. And this time, hey, we're going to get a picture of the Superfly, so at least we know who's coming back to the WWF, sparing no expense on the return of Jimmy Snuka here in these little vignettes. Just a picture and a logo. Can't wait to see what happens here when the Superfly gets back in the ring. But right now we go back to the ring to see Mr. Perfect step in there against Joe Cruz as we get an insert promo here from the Hitman, Execution Excellence. Bret Hart says it's perfect time for you, Curt Hennig, to meet the excellence of execution. Well, wasn't that clever, Bret? A perfect time indeed. And that match will go down at the house shows. Looking forward to covering a couple of those. As Joe Cruz, a big boy known for working underneath in the NWA, now here in the WWF this week, battling Curt Hennig, Seen here now rocking that neon green singlet. Cruz getting in a little offense early on. Awkward lariat by Cruz, but landing a scoop slam. Trying for a warrior-looking splash off the ropes, but lands on the knees of Mr. P. Perfect coming back with that rolling neck snap. As he alerts us, now you're going to see a perfect plex does indeed connect, getting the win here for Curt Hennig, just 1 minute and 40 seconds. Still undefeated, that perfect record here in the World Wrestling Federation. As we go off now to the Brother Love Show. And his guests this week, Luke and Butch, the Bushwhackers, bringing with them a bowl of sardines. Lovely, mate. And unlike the disgusting whackers, Love says the Brainbusters have both brains and hygiene. Butch thinks they have the upper hand without a weasel in their corner as he takes the flower off the lapel of Brother Love here, his jacket, and begins eating said rose. Brother disgusted at the entire ordeal, making disgusted faces at both Luke and Butch, who then dumped their sardines all over Love's suit, in his suit, on his suit. Poor Bruce Pritchard here. I wonder if he knew it was coming. Leaving Brother Love slipping and a sliding all along that waterfall. The comedy ensues. Ha ha! Now that is comedy, pal. Brother Love falling into a pile of dead fish here. Had to wash the stink off of him. Mike Sharp went nowhere near Brother Love here. Not that Mike Sharp was at this taping, but had he been, he would have been very far away of when Brother Love covered in sardines and that stench. Egads, Luke and Butch having some fun here. But outside of mentioning the Brainbusters, this doesn't really further their feud very much at all. It does, however, push the Bushwhackers into more of that comedic, kid-friendly role that they're going for. Oh, did I mention the No Holds Barred movie available June 2nd, theater near you? We get the trailer right now. Make sure you attend, or don't. I don't really give a shit. Jesse Ventura, none too happy about it. I can tell you that much. Not happy Hulk Hogan has invaded his domain there in Hollywood. Hollyweird, dude. As it is now time, guys, for that big career-ending matchup on free TV. Rugged Ronnie Garvin putting his career on the line versus the career of Greg the Hammer Valentine, a rematch from last week where Garvin kind of upset the Hammer in just 2 minutes' time. Jimmy Hart in the corner of the Hammer here, as it was Greg who issued the challenge, Garvin accepting at the end of last week's program, and away we go. As the bell sounds, Valentine hammering away on Garvin this week. Now, some miscommunication in the corner leading to Ronnie recovering with some nasty chops. And a big right hand of stone drops Valentine down for a 2 count. Garvin looking to follow that up with a pile driver. Greg countering the pile driver into a backdrop, but Garvin rolling through in tow, countering the backdrop into a sunset flip for yet another 2 count here for RRG. Valentine, though, comes battling back, but it's Ronnie Garvin sliding behind a slam, landing on his feet, schoolboying Greg for yet another near fall. Now, admittedly, not the most cool way to win a career-ending match, a schoolboy, but let's be serious. If this was real life, you take the win any way you can get it. And Garvin looking for every opportunity to pin the Hammer here. Now, Valentine wisely backing off into a corner, but Garvin going to follow him in, unload with some more nasty Garvin chops. And a jab and a few headbutts there going to finally drop the Hammer, leaves him wobbly. Garvin with an elbow drop, going to get a 2 count yet again. Lots of covers early and often here by Rugged Ron. And another hand of stone, big right hand connecting on Greg Valentine, but Garvin pulling Greg up to continue the fight, not making the cover. May be a mistake. And finally, Valentine dropping Rugged Ron and plants him with a forearm across the chest. But rather than make the cover, Greg electing to climb to the top rope. But it appears Garvin was playing possum all along. As Hammer gets to the top rope, it's Garvin back to his feet, slamming the Hammer from the top straight into the middle of the ring. And it's time for the Garvin Stomp, the same move that stomped Frenchie Martin right out of the WWF. And Garvin does connect here each and every stomp to the body, the ligaments of Greg Valentine. But again, Rugged Ron picking the Hammer up, looking to deliver even more punishment. But as he goes for a scoop slam, Valentine able to counter into an inside cradle and a hook of the tights. Gonna get the 1, 2, oh my goodness, 3. Wow, inside cradle, hook of the tights. Gonna get the win here. Only 3 minutes and 37 seconds in a retirement match. 3.5 minute retirement match. That's new. Well, the Hammer defeats Rugged Ronnie Garvin. Perfectly fine for a regular TV match, but for a career on the line, this entire thing escalated quickly. A little too quickly, if you know what I mean. No build, no real meaning behind such a giant stipulation just being thrown out there. Two guys that weren't really being utilized on TV, though. Garvin barely even on TV. The announcers mention the stipulations leading into the match, but they don't really drive it home, this life-altering meaning behind the matchup during the match. And even the wrestlers come in just having a match, while they give less than 4 minutes time to get it done. It was eventful for what it was, fun back and forth, very stiff again this week. I think I kind of liked last week's match better. But either way, it looks like Rugged Ronnie Garvin is no more. We see him kind of powder off to the back. Rugged Ronnie Garvin's career, say it ain't so, may be coming to an end, at least as a professional wrestler or sports entertainer, pal. Now, as the Hammer and Jimmy Hart begin to leave ringside, we see Tony Schiavone join him again here. Now, last week it was the Hammer complaining about the loss. This week, though, the Hammer living for wrestling, so he says. He lives for the WWF. It's not him packing his bags and leaving the locker room forever. It's Ronnie Garvin. Just another victim in the long line of Greg Valentine. Ronnie Garvin no more? We'll have to wait and see how that plays out. Right now, though, we've got more action here before we close out Superstars, featuring the fabulous Rougeau brothers with Jimmy Hart in their corner. Their opponents, Mark Brown and Cougar J, back this week. We get an insert promo here from the Rockers. Shawn Michaels and Marty Jannetty calling the Rougeaus dweebs and nerds. Feels like an episode of Saved by the Bell. The Rougeaus were kicked out of Canada, so says Marty, and the Rockers going to send them packing here from the United States as well. Woo! All right, back to the action here. Jimmy Hart was just out here for the Greg Valentine match, right back out here, new jacket for the fabulous Rougeaus as they jump Cougar J from behind, clock him hard. Something odd happens here in the matchup, though. Cougar getting tripped up from the floor by Brother Raymond. Jacques tags in Brother Ray, who lands a drop kick, well placed on the face. But that's going to get the 1, 2, 3. A drop kick by Raymond Rougeau on Cougar J, getting the win in just 1 minute and 20 seconds. Mark Brown never even tagged into the match, so really weird. And I'm not sure if they had to wrap it up for time restraints or if Cougar suffered an injury there. But they end this match very abruptly with a drop kick. Mark Brown, again, never even tagged in. So something peculiar happened there. Cougar J, another of the NWA job guys coming over here for this run. As we learn next week here on Superstars, we're going to see the likes of the Rockers. The Mighty Hercules will be here, as well as the Honky Tonk Man, Arn and Tully, the Brainbusters. We're going to see the Red Rooster in action. The Barbarian will be here, as well as Brother Love's guests, Bobby the Brain Heenan and King Haku. And hey, feature match next week. My goodness, Katie bar the door. May sweeps in full effect. As we hear right now from both sides, it's going to be the $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase, taking on Jake the Snake Roberts.
Jake Roberts, you attacked me from behind, embarrassed me in front of the whole wrestling world at WrestleMania 5. Next week, Jake, you meet me right here, head to head, face to face, and you will pay the price, as does everyone who undermines the $1 Million Man.
So Ted DiBiase wants to take a walk on the wild side. The $1 Million Man, the man that goes out and buys his own belt because he doesn't want to earn one. Well, I tell you something, DiBiase, you're going to find out I don't do tricks, man. I don't roll over like your boy Virgil does. No, sir. If you want to try something that's fun, try me right here next week.
Well, DiBiase telling the narrative his way, Jake attacking him from behind at WrestleMania 5, humiliating the $1 Million Man, but he will pay. Jake will pay next week. Meanwhile, Roberts alerting us all that I don't do tricks, Ted DiBiase, but he's going to teach DiBiase a lesson right here next week on Superstars. What a big matchup coming your way next time. Guys, as we continue on to Wrestling Challenge, April the 30th, tape back April 5th, Syracuse, New York, Onondaga War Memorial. On commentary, as always, it's Bobby Heenan, Gorilla Monsoon. Remember, it's April 30th, but we're starting May sweeps a little early here this year because we saw the retirement match, and now we're going to kick this week's episode of Challenge off with the Intercontinental Champion, Ravishing Rick Rude. Bobby Heenan by his side, taking on the Mighty Hercules. And right out of the gate, we get an insert promo from Ravishing Rick, who says at WrestleMania 5, he put the Ultimate Warrior to shame as Rick Rude became the Ultimate Intercontinental Champion. We know the Warrior's going to respond to that sooner rather than later, and I don't know that it's going to be on a microphone, so keep eyes in the back of your head, Ravishing Rick. And it's weird to hear Gorilla Monsoon doing solo commentary during a feature match, but we have Bobby Heenan ringside. Rude going to grab the mic, going to speak out to the fat, out-of-shape Syracuse Sweat Hogs as he shows off his body and the Intercontinental title belt underneath the robe. And as Hercules enters the ring swinging the mighty chain, Rick Rude and Heenan going to bail, talk things over in the aisleway before the match gets going. Not only does Hercules have his opportunity at IC Gold here this week on TV, but this is yet another chance for him to exact some revenge on the Heenan family. Once a member of the Heenan family, the Mighty Hercules defeating Haku at WrestleMania. Now he has his chance to really rub it in here if he can score the win and take the IC belt from Rick Rude, as Hercules takes Rude around, introducing him to each and every top buckle, one at a time. Very kind of him. The Mighty One going up top to the top rope. I don't know if I've seen Hercules up there very often, but he does land a double axe handle that connects. Going to get 1, 2. Rick Rude kicking out Hercules with a move off the top. I like it. And a nice power slam here from the Mighty One. Gets another 2 count as Gorilla Monsoon calls for Suplex City all the way back here in 1989. Vertical suplex from the Mighty Hercules, getting another 2 count. Going for pinfalls early and often here on the Intercontinental Champion, as we see a nice Mr. Wrestling 2-like knee lift, followed by a series of clotheslines. Hercules calling for it, scooping Rude up, and yes, indeed, locking in the torture rack. The big backbreaker submission hold applied here on Rick Rude. Wow, it's been all Hercules on the offense. And boy, has he got Rude in trouble here, up at his submission finisher. Will Rick Rude submit? Will he give up the belt? Well, Hercules getting a little too close to the ropes. Bobby Heenan able to reach in, tripping up the leg of Hercules, causing him to fall backwards. Boy, Bobby really good at leg tripping business lately. Not good enough, though, to end this one. Hercules immediately leaving the ring after being tripped up, begins to chase the Brain around ringside. Now, Bobby jumping into the ring to escape, but Hercules going to follow him back in, but he's not alone. Hercules bringing with him his big steel chain now in hand, as referee Freddie Sparta stepping in the way, but he gets tossed aside by Hercules, and Herc swinging the chain at Heenan, but misses. As Bobby and Rick Rude going to bail out of the ring, we hear the bell sound. Hercules' trumpet begins to play. It would seem maybe a disqualification, Bobby Heenan tripping him up, but we are alerted that it was Hercules who was DQ'd here. And your winner, Ravishing Rick Rude. Match goes 3 minutes and 24 seconds, so basically the same amount of time as the Garvin Valentine match here, though no retirement stipulations on the line. Rick Rude will retain the title. Hercules disqualified because I don't know if it was from shoving Freddie Sparta or bringing the chain into the ring. Take your pick, but it's Rick Rude sneaking away with the win. A travesty of justice, Gorilla Monsoon might say, as the referee Freddie the Freeloader missing the Bobby Heenan trip, but couldn't ignore being tossed to the mat. Needless to say, Rick Rude retains there as we go off to special report with Lord Alfred Hayes, going back to the Brother Love show last week. The Brutus Beefcake Randy Savage attack angle, cutting the hair of the barber. All I can say is revenge for 2 years worth of job guys who never asked for that haircut, Brudi. Turn around fair play there as we go back to the ring. The Red Rooster taking on Mike Williams. We get an insert promo from the Brooklyn Brawler, who is sick and tired of seeing the Red Rooster. Brawler stating that he's going to beat him up and make him go away. We can only hope we can make the gimmick go away. Certainly Terry Taylor wishes that, at the very least. Gorilla Monsoon trying to taunt Bobby Heenan on commentary about his loss to the Rooster at WrestleMania, but Bobby says it was all due to being attacked by the Ultimate Warrior just a couple matches prior. It was Warrior's Gorilla Press that actually injured Heenan. He would have never lost otherwise to someone the level of a Red Rooster. So Bobby not going to sell Terry Taylor at all here on commentary. And I have no idea if Taylor was told to give this random job guy, Mike Williams, some offense, but he does so, and too much if you ask me. But it's a quick comeback as Red Rooster clucks up, going to do a little rooster strut, land that patented Terry Taylor jawbreaker before delivering the elevated chicken wing hold. Going to get the submission win in 1 minute and 31 seconds. Red Rooster, poultry in motion, folks, as No Holds Barred is on its way. I'm getting sick of that, and we're only just now moving into May. We got another month of No Holds Barred promos. As the Warlord going into solo competition this week, Mr. Fuji in his corner. Warlord's opponent, Brian Jackson, or Johnson. They can't make up their mind depending on the week. Jackson this week throwing a few shots, but the Warlord doesn't even register the blows. Flying shoulder tackle here from the Warlord, including a one-handed slam on his offense with ease, scooping. Brian Jackson's a pretty big boy, and Warlord scooping him up, and like nothing. No surprise there with the pharmaceuticals in the body of the Warlord, who delivers a really fun back suplex before landing that running power slam, getting the victory here. One half of the Powers of Pain solo competition, 1 minute and 44 seconds. The Warlord racking up the victories since coming out of WrestleMania. And as good as the Barbarian has looked in recent weeks in solo competition, the Warlord, not so much, which may explain why Barb is working with the Anvil on the house shows and Warlord relegating to opening the shows against Koko B. Ware. And that's not a knock against Koko, but we know where he is on the card. And so they're kind of building from scratch with the Warlord, whether they already look at the Barbarian as maybe a step above. And rightfully so. As we get another replay of Genius Vignette number 4, we go back to the ring for Jake the Snake Roberts taking on Chris Duffy. We also get an insert promo here from the $1 Million Man, who says Jake embarrassed me at WrestleMania 5, but DiBiase always gets even, and he always gets what he wants. So we'll have to wait and see what that means. We know those two will compete next time here on TV and a couple weeks' time here on the Grenade. But right now in the ring, it's Jake versus Duffy. Jake working the arm of Chris Duffy here. Nice knee lift, sending Duffy through the ropes out to the floor. Great bumps by Chris Duffy during this matchup, by the way. Back inside, short arm clothesline as Jake calls for the DDT. Huge ovation, and it lands, connects, DDT, getting Jake to win 2 minutes and 40 seconds. And Damien out to play after the matchup. Jake Roberts just as over as any time in his career here in 1989. Unfortunately, well, I won't spoil it. We'll just have to wait and see what happens there as the Superfly Vignette number 3 again airs before we go back to the ring for tag team action, featuring the Brainbusters with Bobby Heenan in their corner. Their opponents, Terry Daniels and Brick Bronsky. Not a lot of job guys with nicknames. We'll talk about Brick in a minute. We get an insert promo here from the Bushwhackers, and I have no idea what they're saying. Even Gorilla Monsoon has no clue, so he tries to quote-unquote translate what Luke and Butch may have been saying there in that promo. Now, getting back to the opponents of the Busters, Terry Daniels going back to the Amarillo territory in the late 1970s. He would be given a cup of coffee as the tag team partner of Sergeant Slaughter here in the WWF back in 1984. But his partners, who I want to talk about, Brick Bronsky, who had great size, jacked up, clearly on something, pal. And he had a Cole Twins. Remember Kent and Keith Cole from WCW? No? Well, Google it. Cole Twins haircut here, long flowing mullet with a stinger spiked top. How can you miss? Jacked up, tan, kind of tall. A little background on Mr. Bronsky. He was Mr. Teen Pennsylvania back in 1984, qualified for Mr. America. He did some powerlifting competitions before turning to Stu Hart's Dungeon and training under Mr. Hito while working for the Stampede promotion in recent years. He was once ordered to shoot on Brian Pillman during a Stampede show, and with Brian unsuspecting, of course, he takes the brunt of the blows, knocking Pillman loopy during the matchup. However, following that, Pillman able to recover and return to destroy Bronsky legitimately, and thus injuring his arm did Brian Pillman. That was shortly before coming to the NWA. So apparently Brian having some issues there in the camp of Stampede, which is kind of interesting because Brian was partners with Bruce Hart once upon a time. But we're not talking about Brian right now. We're talking about this Bronsky fellow. And this was all, pretty cool and dandy that this guy's had a background in clearly powerlifting, but also bodybuilding. And now he's into the world of pro wrestling. Seems like a fit. We've seen other guys pull it off. And Bronsky, he had the looks. We're actually going to be talking about Bronsky a little more here coming into the month of May with the results, as he's going to be featured on a loop of house shows here for the World Wrestling Federation. And we'll have more on him here in just a moment. As we get going with the matchup, though, Gorilla Monsoon pointing out Bobby's new attire as of late. The new silver jacket, the purple, the black jacket. Bobby Heenan is sparing no expense since acquiring the Intercontinental title. As the action gets going, the Tully Blanchard getting nowhere with the much larger Bronsky. So he lures Bronsky to chase him around ringside, thus Bronsky missing the blind tag to Arn as Tully re-enters the ring and Anderson blasting Brick from behind. Tag teaming at its best, always the Brainbusters here. Is Bronsky, though, going to power his way back to his corner, tagging into Terry Daniels. Terry taking both of the Busters down, but tries for a Hurricane Rana on Tully. And from the outside, Arn Anderson tripping up Tully from the floor, causing Tully to take a front bump, thus countering the Hurricane Rana into an awesome-looking Tully Blanchard powerbomb. From there, Daniels eating the Arn Anderson spine buster, as the heel's going to go over sucker punch Bronsky just to lure him in the ring, distract the referee, and land that spike pile driver on Daniels behind the ref's back. So we're back to doing it behind the back. We didn't do it at WrestleMania, but we're back to doing it here against the Job Guys. Going to give the Brainbusters the win. Spike pile driver going over 3 minutes and 16 seconds. The always thinking Brainbusters, they're always coming up with new stuff, blind tags and things of that nature. But I love the fact that Arn tripping up his own partner, Tully, making him take a front bump, which would essentially counter a Hurricane Rana straight down into a powerbomb. Excellent stuff here by Arn and Tully, as always. Now, I want to go back to Brick Bronsky really quickly. He would actually be offered a contract reportedly later here after doing some house shows in May of 1989, but he would turn that contract down, citing a bad experience on the road here and at these TV tapings, the way the WWF handled business. Now, he would go on to promote some wrestling shows later on in the late 90s, early 2000s. But my favorite detail about Brick Bronsky was that he was in one of my all-time cult favorite movies, the series Class of Nukem High. He's in part 2 of the Class of Nukem High. If you've never seen those, go check them out if you love campy B movies with a couple of boobs. Sadly, Bronsky passed away a few years ago, 2021, due to complications from COVID. He was only 57 years old at the time, but he had looked the part here. There may have been something for that boy. I just don't know what went wrong as we continue on. Special interview this week. Mean Gene Okerlund up on the stage. His guest, one Hillbilly Jim. In Mudlick, Kentucky, there's only two kinds of people, says Gene. Big old good uns and good old big uns. And you can take your pick which one's hillbilly. A little dancing with Mean Gene here up on the stage. Man, Jim looks to be in tremendous shape. Hillbilly was always in good shape. I'll give him that much. Even at WrestleMania X7, when he came out for the Battle Royal, just hit that pose, that old hillbilly pose. And remember, me and my cousin Crystal just looked at each other. Didn't speak, but smiles on her face like, oh my goodness. Talk about turning back time for one day only. And he's way more over here, Hillbilly Jim, than he has any right to be in 1989, especially when you consider the fact that he hasn't been on TV full-time in several years by this point. But here he is, Hillbilly Jim, back again on WWF programming. Gene says that he's heard that the Honky Tonk Man has stated that he can sing, dance, and even pick at guitar better than old Hillbilly Jim. Jim responding here that Honky Tonk Man, he has those looks, those fancy clothes, the grease-backed hair, the painted-on sideburns. Honky thinks he's you-know-who. I guess we can't even say Elvis anymore. Hillbilly says, Honky Tonk, he doesn't really play that guitar, though. I've been watching him. He don't really play that guitar, Gene. And Jim says he can cut a rug all around the Honky Tonk Man, and he ain't going to back up 1 inch when they get in the ring. Yeehaw! We got ourselves a hell of a wing-ding of a match. Hillbilly Jim and the Honky Tonk Man coming to the house shows. Gene having a good old time here, though, dancing with Hillbilly Jim as they play us into commercial break. Hillbilly Jim even out here getting to cut a promo as feud with the Honky Tonk Man. That's a thing in 1989. Memphis 84, I'd buy it. WWF 89, not so much. Anywho, we go back to the ring. More singles action. Rick Martel out here taking on Brian Owens. And much like Superstars, Slick out first to introduce his latest protege, Rick Martel, to the Wrestling Challenge crowd this time. No music for Rick here at the Challenge tapings. He came out to Jive Soul Bro on Superstars. But we do get a cute little hit the rock number. So we got a little hand gimmick here between Slick and Martel and a little finger banging one another. That's pretend handguns, guys. Not the other finger bang. South Park made fame. Never mind. We get an insert promo during the matchup from Rick Martel, who claims that Tito Santana held him back. And now we will see just how good Rick Martel really is all on his own. Admiring himself there at his own physique, his abilities in the ring, you could say Rick Martel is a model specimen. The bell sounds were underway, and the new and improved Martel pouncing on Owens in the corner. Nice dropkick from Rick, takes the fight to the floor, driving Owens backwards into the steel post. Very proud of himself is Rick Martel in the ring with a backbreaker, a backdrop, a gut-wrench suplex, softening that back up. Brian Owens going to go down to the Boston Crab. Rick Martel the winner, just 1 minute and 39 seconds. And now a heel. It takes Martel a couple of seconds to release said Boston Crab after the matchup, but as he gets up to pose for the fans, I realize once again, man, is Martel jacked since return. Actually, since the Royal, he wasn't this big at the Rumble. So, Rick Martel looking good here in his new heel push, managed by the Doctor of Style. We'll have to wait and see how that plays out. But the action continues on following another no-holds-barred trailer. It's the Hitman, Bret Hart, stepping in the ring with Mitch Casey. We get an insert promo here from Mr. Perfect this time around, talking about the Hitman, Bret Hart. Hennig says, what a joke. You can't go move for move with Mr. Perfect. Well, that's debatable. We'll have to wait and see what happens there, and I'm looking forward to it. In the ring now, though, Mitch Casey whacking the Hitman to start, but makes the mistake of going to the top rope. And as always, Bret Hart playing possum on the mat, popping up and scooping Casey off that top rope, slamming him into the ring before taking him back to the corner, tying him in a tree of woe as the Hitman stomps away a beatdown in the tree of woe, baby, before the pile driver, putting Mitch Casey away. Just 1 minute and 36 seconds. Bit too quick of a squash for Bret Hart, so he doesn't get any of the 5 moves of doom in, but it does get him on TV and it gets him over as he heads to the house shows and Kurt Hennig as his opponent. And speaking of the Hart family, next week on Wrestling Challenge, the Blue Blazer will be here along with the Twin Towers, Bad News Brown, the Fabulous Rougeaus will be here, and with Mr. Perfect, we heard him there in the insert promo. He's going to be in action right here next week on Wrestling Challenge, plus a special interview with Mean Gene conducting. Hacksaw Jim Duggan going to be up on the stage. And this match, another feature matchup for May Sweeps, King Haku battling Big John Studd. Something tells me this won't be as good as their 1986 encounter at Madison Square Garden. Me and Gene Jackson covered that a while ago on the Coliseum videocast. They really stiffed each other. It was very enjoyable. Those guys just wanting at each other, beating the shit out of each other with forearms across the chest. Here in 89, I won't put my hopes up there. As we close out this week, we've got one more piece of business talking about primetime wrestling as we move into May the 1st, 1989, hosted by Gorilla Monsoon, Bobby Heenan, now into their 3rd year together as a unit on primetime. Gorilla talks the versatility of Hulk Hogan's acting ability, as I have to hold in the laughter. Bobby Heenan even giving Hogan a 10 on his acting skills and no holds barred on a scale of 1 to 100, perhaps? I don't know. Bobby Heenan says he will need to be good at acting, that's the Hulkster, because Savage will run him out of the WWF before too long. So you can tell even Bobby Heenan, the Trooper here, putting over Hulk Hogan's acting ability because, well, everybody's in here to make the money. And even the heels have to sell No Holds Barred as a major motion picture coming your way. We've got a couple of exclusive matches here this week as well on the show. The Rockers defeating George South and Boris Zukov, trying that double top rope drop kick again. They missed at WrestleMania, and they get a little closer here. Jannetty kind of pivoting to connect at the same time as Shawn. Not very pretty, but they're still trying to get that thing over, and the Rockers do go over 4 minutes and 15 seconds. Also on primetime, taped back December of 1988 in Daytona Beach, it's the Rougeaus defeating Coco Beware and Scott Casey. Casey going down to the Rougeaus bomb, the Rougeau bomb, putting Scott Casey down 6 minutes and 44 seconds. Casey no longer with the company. He was finished up shortly before WrestleMania. And I guess we're going to put our current talent over at the expense of the guys no longer here. And that totally makes sense from a booking and logistics standpoint. And that's going to wrap it up here this week on The Grenade. Guys, I want to thank you so much for being here, covering 2 more weeks. We're already through the month of April. We've entered the month of May. TV, May 1st there, primetime wrestling. So we begin again. Another month, a month removed now from WrestleMania 5 already. And if you've been part of the Ultimate Tier, if you've been part of the big ones, you know the WrestleMania 5 videocast was covered by myself and John Paz of the 2-man Power Trip Empire. Well, guess what? John Paz cometh here next week. We have not recorded the show tentatively right now in case something gets in our way. You will be hearing from me and the Paz Man right here next week on The Grenade as we discuss May 1989 WWF news and results. We're going to look at all the house show feuds going on. We'll discuss some of the bigger events there at the arenas. And of course, all the latest news here, the World Wrestling Federation. Another great co-host coming your way right here next week on The Grenade. Stay tuned. Tell your friends. Looking forward to it. But for this week, I just want to remind everybody, available right now at patreon.com/WrestleCopia. 3 great tiers you guys can choose from: the All Access tier, the VIP Superfan tier, many a videocast there, and even more videocasts and that drop box of 2+ terabytes of old school wrestling footage available at the Ultimate tier, and more coming very soon. I don't want to let the cat out of the bag. Don't want to jinx myself, but we've got a couple more new programs coming your way there at the Patreon. So stay tuned for all of that and so much more. But for this week, we're going to close up shop. I want to thank everybody for listening once again. And please, if you have the time, I would appreciate if you took 30 seconds out of your day, whether you're on Spotify or iTunes, whatever the case may be, wherever you listen to this, please go out there and leave us a review. A 5-star review would be great. And not just a star rating. If you want to leave a few words, that would be phenomenal. And remember, the more star ratings we get, the higher up we're seen in the algorithms. Make the Wrestling Memory Grenade known, as well as regional wrestling and all the other great podcasts here as part of WrestleCopia. But until next time, it's time to close up shop. So this is Ray Russell saying from pillar to post and coast to coast. You pull the pin, and I'll pick up the pieces right here on the Wrestling Memory Grenade. I'll see you next week. Don't miss it. Be there.
What's it like to be a genius when everyone's a dope? I have a sense of humor. Otherwise, I couldn't cope. I'm good at Roman numerals. No, that's not true. I'm great. I used them in my tax returns of 1988. They brought me in for questioning, and wow, were they impressed. Just think what they'd have thought if I had really done my best. I tried out once for Jeopardy, but got disqualified. Merv Griffin told me, Lanny, you are overqualified. I remind the competition and every wrestling fan, behold, the genius Lanny Poffo, the world's smartest man.